All good. Well, welcome everybody to our conversation, building bridges. Something which I've been looking forward to now for quite some time. I would like to welcome Hani Adzam from Viaka, who will be discussing investing in MENA from abroad. Hani is a long-term partner, supporter, and also a customer of TAP. And when I joined about 8 months ago, he was one of the first introductions in which I was given by Chris. So yeah, a very valued member of the TAP community, I would say. So welcome, Hani.
Thanks so much, Sean. Yeah, I love what you guys are doing. And as you said, I've benefited from it in Viaka and with what we're building.
Exactly. So I think the overall topic of conversation then today will be supporting the MENA region from abroad, investing in the region from abroad. I think from a not only a financial perspective, which you have a lot of expertise in, but also hiring and just the general, I would say, landscape of the MENA region, youth employment, youth unemployment opportunities now, which are coming up there, and yeah, just a bit of a prediction of the future, then perhaps of kind of what we can expect to see out of the region. I'm going to briefly introduce TAP here as well, because I'm just aware that there may be a few people either watching the video or in attendance who haven't heard of TAP, or who are unfamiliar with what we do. So super briefly, we connect high potential talent from the MENA region, specifically Palestine, Lebanon, and also Jordan. We connect high potential talent in those countries with remote working opportunities around the world. And we do that for junior talent. And also we have recently launched our more senior track as well. Juniors we put into our education systems, and then after they graduate, we then find them as many remote opportunities as we possibly can to interview for. And our senior talent we equip with all of the tools and the skills to land their own remote opportunities. So we now have graduates at both the junior and the senior level. We have hiring companies from Sydney all the way to LA. We have placed nearly 70 tappers this year alone, pushing hard for 150 before the end of the year. I know myself and the BD team are pursuing that heavily and kind of doing our best to get that number, with a 94% rehire rate, which means that after you hire one tapper, there's always the interest of hiring another. So that's a bit about us now, without just going into too much detail. So I'd like to hand it over to yourself, Hani, for a brief introduction into Viaka.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So with Viaka, basically what we've been building over the past couple of years is really a place for what I would describe as the MENA region's global community in tech and venture and startups to come together, build startups together, invest in startups, and generally support each other wherever they might be in the world, as the slide on the screen indicates. And that's why I call it the MENA's global tech community, because we have members from Silicon Valley to New York to Paris, London, and then of course actually in the MENA region itself. And you know, our vision is that this community should be connected and should be working together on these types of projects to kind of lift up an entire ecosystem, regardless of where they're based in the world. And the way that we bring this community together is through in-person events, as well as virtual ones. We have things like Slack channel, WhatsApp groups for members to also connect with each other virtually across borders, across time zones, etc. So yeah, that's what we've built thus far. That's what we continue to aim to create and level up. Today we have about 800 members across these geographies, and about 2/3 of our members are startup founders or investors themselves. So yeah, we're really excited about what we've done thus far and where we're heading in the future as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's super interesting. So, before I dive into exactly kind of how you help and what Viaka looks like at the moment, I'm interested, and I think everybody would be interested to hear a bit about how you got there, or the inspiration behind Viaka, and just your overall career and your history then yourself. So if you'd like to just give us a bit of an insight there.
Definitely. So I grew up in the US, a mixed Palestinian American family, and actually spent the first year of my career after university working in Palestine, in Ramallah. And while I was there, that experience really opened my eyes to the power of startups and technology, and in general entrepreneurship. So it's informed my career since then. I came back to the US. I worked in a startup in the travel tech space. I was an early employee there. That company was eventually acquired by a financial institution called Capital One, credit cards, banking, all of that kind of stuff. And I worked there as a product manager for 3 years, but also after that acquisition, I kind of had the opportunity to re-engage with the tech ecosystem in the Middle East. I worked part-time as a venture partner for an early stage VC in the region called Plus VC. And it was really in my role with Plus VC that I started to meet startup founders in the MENA diaspora, to network with venture capitalists and founders who were in the MENA region, and just kind of see the opportunity to create something that actually brought them together in like a more meaningful way, a way that was driven towards action and like creating partnerships, creating opportunities for collaboration. And so, yeah, as I said, it's been about 2 years since I launched Viaka. It's grown a lot since then. In my like full-time capacity today, I also work at Silicon Valley Bank, much more focused on, working with startups here in the US, but working with early stage founders is kind of the thread that connects everything I do, whether it's with Viaka or with SVB.
And were you aware at a young age then, like that you would grow up and kind of work with initiatives that are supporting the MENA region, or be extremely involved in, tech there and business there? Or kind of what age or at what part of your life did you realize that's exactly what you wanted to do?
I think growing up, honestly, we like in even just family discussions and stuff, it was much more focused on the political aspects of the Middle East, let's say. It was really only when I went and lived there in Palestine that I got very excited about the power of entrepreneurship and of tech to transform and improve livelihoods in the region. So I would say that was really the like catalytic experience for me, was going there and living there and seeing the things that were already being built, and just wanting to, in some way and at some point in my career, be able to contribute to that. So yeah, if there are people kind of in the region's diaspora that haven't gone and haven't been able to spend an extended period of time there, I would highly encourage it, because that was just a transformational experience for me.
Yeah, it's all of my TAP colleagues are well aware that's been high up on my bucket list now for a very long time, to go out there and to visit and to experience the region in general. So definitely looking forward to that as well. So then you had a history in of course in tech at the beginning, and then in investment, and then you decided to found Viaka, of course. Where did the inspiration, like, was there any blueprint or inspiration of any other communities, or like where did the whole idea come from?
It's a really good question. I would say around the time when I was thinking about establishing this, there are other similar platforms, let's say, in the US for other communities, whether that's like the Black American community, Asian American, Latino American. And, I didn't feel on the one hand that there was something that actually gathered the MENA regions, diaspora working in tech here in the US, in a way that, like I said, really brought them together with the goal of like creating new projects and connecting people that otherwise wouldn't meet each other or anything like that. And so those different organizations have, provided inspiration, kind of drawing on what other communities have been able to do. But I think that the thing that was always part of Viaka's initial vision and the inspiration was the fact that with Plus VC, the fund that I was working with, they kind of gave me the mandate to look at investing from the region. This fund is still based in MENA, and investing in diaspora founders. And so that concept of like transferring capital from the region to founders here, but also, is there a way to transfer knowledge between the two regions? Is there a way to transfer even commercial opportunities? That I guess that was really like the inspiration for what Viaka could do, and it was building off of that experience that led me to want to establish something a bit more formalized, a bit more structured to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. And were you surprised by the growth of Viaka in general, and kind of how big it is now, and how well established it is? And was that ever part of the plan, or was that always in the blueprint of like what you wanted to do? Kind of what is the difference between what Viaka looks like now and kind of what you originally thought it would look like back then?
I would say the short answer is yes. I've definitely been surprised by the growth, and how things have changed a little bit from the original vision. Was initially I thought of things actually much more bifurcated, where there's like a community just for the MENA diaspora, and then we find different ways to plug, initiatives from the region into that. But eventually, I came to the kind of realization that there's no need for that bifurcation. As I said, this is like a global MENA community working in tech. Even just, we were talking about GITEX and North Star earlier at the top of the call. Like the number of founders in the US that I know who have traveled to Dubai for that event, it's at least a dozen. And so it's like a really good indication to me that, yeah, somebody might be living here in the US, but they're doing business across borders. They're building teams across borders, et cetera. And so eventually, like, it didn't make sense for me to have this like exclusive community just for people in the diaspora, because people were already traveling. Like, it's very hard these days to pin down this person is just a diaspora person. They're they're traveling across borders. They're working across borders. So that was one big change. But overall, I guess I felt the need for a community and a platform like Viaka, and so I've just been pleasantly surprised that a lot of other people have felt that need as well.
Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting point, actually, which brings me on to my next one, about the MENA region in general. And you mentioned there, it's like becoming a lot more common now, especially as we were discussing with GITEX and these conferences and these newer tech hubs which are emerging in the MENA region, that it's now kind of bilaterally, right? Just where you're seeing founders actually travel back and forth from both locations for a multitude of different reasons. So I want to discuss with you a bit about the trends in the MENA region and kind of what you have discovered and and the main parts of growth, I would say, which you have noticed in your time and working directly with the region. I have a few kind of interesting points here. Of course, you have accelerators like Flat 6 Labs, you have 500 startups, you have, VCs, Middle Eastern venture partners, loads of WAMDA as an example, just so a lot of, investment capital in the region, of course.
Mm-hmm.
You have places like now Dubai and Cairo are kind of becoming massive players in like the global tech scene in general. Things like even sustainability initiatives, and you're looking at the net zero emissions by 2050. Other things like Vision 2030, of course, to diversify away from oil a bit. Other trends then are kind of, what are you noticing about the growth in the MENA region, and what are the positives and what you're seeing out of the region in general?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been a lot of positive developments if we're talking over the arc of like the past decade, I think. One thing which was a huge catalyst for all of this, including the launch of Viaka as well, was honestly the experience of COVID and the changing norm of how we work. And suddenly people got so used to doing calls like this. And I feel like that really opened up the access to talent, of course, given specifically this conversation, the trend of companies outside of MENA being able to hire full-time employees in the region that can work remotely and deliver exceptional results. I think 10 years ago that was something that was really hard. That was a really hard pitch to make to companies anywhere, that you can hire a team. Even if you're a small startup, you can hire a few folks somewhere across the world, and you're going to be able to work with them on a day in, day out basis and be really successful. And that was also part of the reason why I thought now is a good time to set up something like Viaka, because in a very short period of time, we got used to building relationships and building things, essentially through Zoom calls and stuff like that. So I think that's been a positive one, and I think that trend continues. TAP is, of course, one of my favorite companies facilitating that. But you also have companies like MENA, which is a very well-known example. It went through YC and stuff like that. And there's been honestly a lot of other ones that have cropped up in the past few years. So that's one really exciting trend. And then, you talked a little bit about like the move away from oil and the investment from governments, particularly in the Gulf, into this sector. It's spurred a lot of activity, and it has managed to put MENA in general on the map as a destination for people who are working in startups and in venture, whatever their background might be, across the world. A lot of prominent, particularly venture capitalists, have traveled to the Gulf over the past couple of years to participate in conferences, to look for LP money, to discover the local ecosystem. So I think that's also a really positive development. At the end of the day, my hope is that it does lead to the development of local talent, because ultimately I think that is like what is really the best like investment for long-term sustainability of these kind of projects, is building up the local talent base. Mm-hmm. So yeah, those are a couple of the positive developments. Of course, there's also still challenges. Like I think the access to capital, despite some of this money, the money right now is very concentrated geographically and in certain circles, let's say. And so access to capital remains a real challenge, I think more broadly across MENA. And so hopefully, just by doing a little bit more day in, day out to kind of like spread the positive narrative and highlight the talent, both from like individual potential hires to the talent and the potential of the startups in the region, we can slowly change that and chip away at that challenge.
Looks like TAP and also Viaka are kind of well vested in actually tackling that challenges. Then kind of making things more available, and then us here at TAP obviously starting the talent bridge out as best as we possibly can. I think it's an interesting one then, which we can move on to as well, because in a region just that is growing, of course, from a investment perspective and from a tech perspective, right? There's a lot of growth in general, and then despite being kind of one of the most highly educated parts of the world, there are unemployment difficulties in the region for local high potential talent. So again, a few stats out of me. There is at the moment in the MENA region, and if I focus on youth unemployment, so that's under the age of 30 years old, it's at 27% is the youth unemployment in the MENA region, as per the ILO. Now, 55% of the entire MENA region is deemed as youth, so it's a high percentage of a high percentage. If you look at Palestine specifically, youth unemployment, which again is under the age of 30, reaches 40% in the West Bank and 62% in Gaza. So, of course, often, if not always, reasons out of the control of the youth themselves, but they're pretty high numbers. So in terms of us actually building that bridge, then can you tell us why the MENA region is a good option in general to look for talent? If you're a business owner and you're looking to hire, why should they consider the MENA region?
I can really speak mostly just from my experience, but you're kind of presented with this option, like in any, if you're looking for any good investment, regardless of the field, like you're looking for like the price and let's say the quality of the asset. And if you can find assets that are underpriced compared to other similar options, then and the quality is still there, then that should be like a no-brainer decision for folks who are doing business. And so like if you look at the cost of hiring talent from the MENA region compared to options, especially for us here in the US, it is, you're getting a great deal, and at the same time, and perhaps more importantly, you're getting access to really high quality people, as you said, highly educated, great mastery of the language if you're doing work in English, and just really diligent, hardworking people. So that, it's kind of the combination of everything you'd want when you're looking to expand your team. And I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit, but thus far for Viaka, like we've just had an exceptional experience. So seeing the proof points as well from other folks, like for the people that have a bit of trepidation about this, hopefully that just helps them kind of be willing to just, try it out, because I think when you put all of those things together, as I said, it should really be a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm. And is there any one piece of advice then, if there's a founder like who is listening to this conversation or watching the video and they're considering their hiring from TAP or from the MENA region for the first time, is there any advice then which you would give them? Any kind of one nugget of information which you think then would be valuable?
I mean, I guess two things that come to mind immediately is like, of course, it's very hard to do this kind of thing without having a trusted partner who's vetting talent, who's upskilling them, who's connecting you to them. And so TAP was super helpful for in that case for us. And then the other thing I would say is, this is maybe just a personal perspective, but to project it out, like when you hire someone, you obviously don't want to hire them just to micromanage them. And so like I think looking when you're reviewing the talent and when you're bring them on board, like doing so with the mind of developing and giving that giving the people you bring on board like the autonomy and the like empowering them to really like take ownership of what they're building. It's also going to be a win-win for both the founder or the company that's hiring people and the people who are being hired. So, you know, definitely don't go into this, in my opinion, with the mindset of I'm hiring someone and I need to like stay on top of them and micromanage every little thing that they do for them to do it correctly. Like, no, go into it with the mentality that I'm bringing on amazing talent that I want to develop and want to see take ownership of whatever they're working on for me. I think that'll just make that entire experience 10 times more rewarding, as I said, for every party involved.
Mm-hmm. And so is there anything, because we've already diving in to your own experience in hiring with TAP and kind of how that was in general. I know, so it was Malak, who's an ex Tapper and a graduate of our programs, who has joined Hani about a year ago now, is it approximately?
A little less, I think, more like 6 or 7 months. But
okay, yeah.
She's accomplished the equivalent of work.
A year's work. It feels like a long time. Feels like a long time anyway. But yeah, so just for context, just for anybody who isn't aware, and I wanted, yeah, so we're kind of diving into this a little bit more then. Is there anything that surprised you? It could be positively or it could be negatively even. But is there anything that you weren't expecting from working with TAP or from hiring a Tapper than which you were surprised about?
I'll say starting, even just starting with the process, it was very easy for me to engage with. If I remember correctly, it was basically, you know, put some specifications around the type of person I was looking for and the responsibilities. And within a couple of days, I had like a short list of candidates. And I think even down to scheduling the conversations and stuff with them was entirely facilitated for me. So super smooth process. And then, you know, what I was talking about, the piece of advice, like giving ownership and responsibility and stuff, like part of the reason why I say that now is because I didn't necessarily have that in mind. You know, I was thinking initially that I was just hiring someone to help me manage, you know, manage my email and setting up meetings, because the work on Viaka had really gotten a bit overwhelming. But yeah, it ended up that Malak, since joining and stuff, has taken over our essentially like all of our digital media and basically become kind of like an integral, I would say, strategic partner in Viaka. And I think I saw she's on the call, so I'm not just saying that because she's on the call. I would say that no matter what. So that was another just like really, really pleasant surprise. That, yeah, she was very willing to expand her scope and provide, like new ideas, a fresh perspective. Earlier in the call, Sean, you asked me about the growth, and I was kind of saving it to talk about until now, but I think having Malak come on board and totally refresh and improve our branding and our social presence and stuff has been a huge contributor to growth over the past, I mean, especially the past 4 or 5 months. So there have also been moments in Viaka's history where like the growth really spikes up, and this has been one of them.
Well done, Malak. Then a very good representative of TAP. I have noticed that even with you know, not only Viaka but there has been other clients which take on board a tapper, and then you know, within 6 months to a year, they're a, you know, super pivotal part or cornerstone of the business, you know, based on their input and their motivation and their attitude in general. And yeah, so well done, Malak and Viaka, of course. And I think that's a really nice way to wrap up the conversation. I'd like to open up the floor to anybody who has any questions for Hani. There is, yes, you can either raise your hand if you want to speak, or you can just write the question into the chat box. And then here we have a QR code, which you can scan, and it will bring you onto our careers page where you can just get more information about how to hire a tapper and the available tappers which we have, and just how to get involved. But yeah, thank you very much, Hani. Enjoyed the conversation thoroughly, and I hope that everybody in attendance has some key takeaways and some interesting information to take away from the call. But yeah, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Yeah, happy to answer any questions if folks have them, and also always happy to just you know, answer them over. If something comes up later, feel free to just add me on LinkedIn or something, and happy to answer.
Of course. Amani.
Yes, hi Hani, hi Sean. Thank you both for your time. We really appreciate it. I wanted to ask you guys, do you guys take internships? Like after we finish 2 months from our lectures, there's 2 months for intern. We intern with the company. So I wanted to ask, you guys take internships for 2 months?
Yeah, we've had interns, honestly, from across the world, people who get engaged for a couple months. Over the summer, yeah, we had a couple students actually here in the US engage with internships, always open to having folks from the Middle East as well. It just comes down to, you know, do we feel that we can not only benefit from an intern coming on, but also provide them with a valuable experience? Like, do we have the bandwidth and capacity to make sure that it's going to be something that's beneficial for them? But as long as we have that and feel like there's a good fit, then yeah, we're more than happy to work with interns.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? I will send all of my details to all of the attendees, of course, and if there's any questions which pop into your mind, of course, afterwards, then you can let me know, and I can reach out to Hani and ask them, of course. And yeah, again, thank you everybody for attending. I really enjoyed it. Again, thank you, Hani. And of course, yeah, anybody can reach out at any time if they have any more questions. We'll have a video of this as well, then, which we will have a few clips out of, and then we can release as well. So you can just keep an eye on your emails for that also. But thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you, everyone.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.